Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of The Archive, where our goal is to tell interesting LARP stories and preserve LARP history. I am Saint Godric, and today with me, I have Lady Squire, Cannon Tul. I said it wrong with Lyndon. It's not Tul. Tul.
It is Tul.
The hype master and defender, currently residing in Sylvan Glade out of Winter's Edge. How are you doing this evening?
Really great. How are you?
Not bad at all. Excited to have you on. Glad we've finally been able to make the schedules work to get you on.
Yes, absolutely.
We have been trying probably for 6 weeks now to make this work. And between different scheduling issues, it hasn't happened, but tonight it is. So I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. This is going to be really fun.
Yeah, I think so. So Cannon, for our listeners, give us a rundown of just real brief, a rundown of your LARP career. What games do you play? What games have you played? And then I'll kind of dissect it and pick it apart a little bit as we go into it.
Sure, absolutely. So I started playing Amtgard in 2008 as a wee, I think 15-year-old or something. and I actually... So I started playing in 2008, and my best friend's father, who goes by the name of Loco Foco, who's actually no longer with us, took me out to my very first park day. He got us interested in playing Amtgard at the time, and this was acceptable at the time, but at the time he actually had signed my waiver. So, it was one of those things where I was spending the night at my best friend's house. He's like, okay, well, it's Sunday and we're going to go to the park to do this, sword thing. And if you want to come, you're welcome. And I was like, all right, I could get down. So we went out to play, and that was actually the day that I got my name. Actually, I was named that day. My actual first Amtgard name was Cannonball, rather. And I was named by this guy named Goldenrod, who I don't think actually plays anymore. I was playing in Springfield, Missouri at the time, so it would have been Knoblands of Rising Winds. So
dating it right there. Yeah.
It was originally a Rising Winder, even though I didn't know it at the time. So they set up a ditch, and they put a sword in my hand, and they said, okay, go hit the guys in the other line. And I said, all right. And I ran the other line, and I just jumped into the middle of those guys and immediately died, of course, because I'm this noob just swinging a sword. And this guy said, all right, well, she's Cannonball now. And it was a thing, you name the newbie at the time. So I got my name that day. And then, we played a couple of times after that, but it wasn't anything consistent. And then I graduated high school in 2011, went to college, and hilariously enough, so on my first day, I'd actually met Kenshin. So Kenshin is a knight from Taldagore, and I don't think he was a knight at the time, but I met him that day, and I thought he was really cool. He's super nice to me. And then we actually went to college at the same time. We're kind of like ships passing in the night. So we'd have culinary classes right after each other. So, I'd recognize them at the time, and I was like, oh, hey, I know that guy. And then at the end of 2013, I actually came back into the game, and I started playing more consistently. I played in Knoblands until, I think January 1st of 2016, when I moved to, Ohio. I played in Blackfire Pass, in Rising Winds for about 8 months. And then I actually moved to St. Louis. And I played in, I played in Jupiter Stones, where I was actually the last Baroness of that park. So Jupiter Stones had another park form called Night's Rest, which was about, half an hour away from where we were, the limit at the time.
Yeah.
And they just had more fun. And so at the end, we just took a vote, and I ended up being the last. At the time, we had to demote to sheriff. So I was the last sheriff of Jupiter Stones, which was a park I really loved to play at when I would go up to St. Louis. I think that was in 2017 is when that park folded. And then I would be champion at the time. And then that garnered me my defender title. So I am a defender of Taldagore. And then I spent some time just playing in Rising Winds, just because even though I was in St. Louis, I really enjoy Rising Winds. It will always be my home. And then kind of fast forward to 2019, I decided I was going to give living out here in South Carolina a try. I moved out here and I played in, I actually helped change the name of Celts Crossing, which is the local park. And then I drive an hour to go play in a larger park called Sylvan Glade. So it has a lot of cool people. They're a duchy, so they're trying to get that grand duchy. Yeah. And actually, I had a lot of experience building a park because we took Knoblands from death to we took them from park death to a duchy, the first duchy in Taldagor, actually. And I can't take all the credit for that because we had an incredible team that worked really hard to get that. But yeah, we were the first duchy, and then that was Knoblands. Yeah. And then right after us was Falcon Tor. So they were the other gigantic park in TD. But yeah, Knoblands is that's my home. I love that park. There are so many good people there. And I always
got a whole event named after it.
Yes, we do. I never actually got to go to a Knoblander, unfortunately. That's one of those that was really on my list, and I just never got the opportunity. But
same,
Keep filled that void for me. So I love Keep on the Borderlands. As far as my tenure in Amtgard, I kind of just jumped in head first, and I did, I think, champion of Knoblands at first. I think I was pro tem champion or something. And then I moved into the PM role, and that's how I got my lady title. And then I moved. So I was briefly regent of Blackfire Pass, which I really enjoyed. And then when I moved back, I was sheriff of Jupiter Stones. And then I was champion of Taldagor, where I got my defender title. And then since then, I haven't really held a lot of offices. I think I was very briefly clerk of Celts Crossing, but haven't really felt the need to do any leadership since then. But I am always doing service. Generally, you will not find me at an event not doing service. It's very rare that I don't find something to do.
I think every event that I have met and hung out with you at in person, you have been doing something. So I can second that.
I definitely have a service drive when it comes to Amtgard. I really enjoy volunteering for the game and just making it more fun for other people. Cause I kind of hit that, I'm having fun and I'm playing the game and that's great. But I also like helping people. So, I think my first keep, I didn't really do anything. I just played the games. And then the year after I jumped in head first and I did a lunch at keep. And then, it kind of just went up from there. I think out of the last, since I want to say my first keep was 2014 or 2015, but since then there hasn't been a keep where I haven't volunteered to do something. So out of the last 4 keeps, I've been an assistant or a crat at keep. 3 out of the 4, rather. 2019, I wasn't a crat, but keep is the epitome of Amtgard for me. I love that event, and I will always do everything I can to make that event super cool. I'm actually working on a bid for on the Borderlands 12. Yeah, we're excited. Can't quite give any of the details away yet because we won't know if we get the bid until after the first of the year. But if we did it,
for listeners who have never been, Keep on the Borderlands is, at least in my tenure as an Amtgard player, has been the largest event in Amtgard every year. I think Gathering sometimes gets halfway there, but Keep is by far the largest, and it runs, 800 people, 700, 800 people every year. And it's a blast. It is on, if you haven't been, you should throw it on your bucket list. It is the largest game, and there's something going on for every player. If you are the big role play heavy players, it's the best night quest I've ever been a part of. If you want to do ANS, they have a massive ANS tournament, and then generally there are classes going on. If you're a fighter, they have battle games, like hyper competitive, large scale battle games. But then they also have the Imhog Cup, which is one of the most, if not the most competitive fighting tournament of the year. This nationwide, it is a spectacular event.
Yeah, Keep is there is something there for everyone. And, just to add to that, like the highest number that we've had for Keep was like, I think 1,100, I think was the highest number that we've been. I know that we broke 1,000 one year. And I think that is the year that we ended up having to move. The year before we moved sites, because it used to be held at Wolf Creek State Park. Yeah. And then just a bunch of issues with like Illinois and their taxes for merchants and wanting to have a certain amount of their profits, and it's just not a good deal.
We were outgrowing that spot.
we were really outgrowing that spot, and we've certainly had some growing pains as far as like finding a new site, because we want something that works for everyone, but we don't want to break the bank. So just to kind of give you like an inside mind into like Keep and how that runs. And I only know that because I've been working on Keep for so long, and like just talking to people on the Tri-Kingdom North BOD, which is the Keep BOD. So Keep on the Borderlands is like a Tri-Kingdom. For those that are listening, Tri-Kingdom event is so 3 kingdoms come together and they host and have this event. So people from those kingdoms generally will put in a bid, and then they'll run the event if their bid is selected by Tri-Kingdom North. So you bid them directly, and they choose based on who they think would be the best fit for that event. So that's kind of what we're going through right now, is putting together a bid packet and then putting in our rough drafts at the end of October rather, and then putting in our final draft at the end of December. So, and then we'll know shortly after that. But yeah, I was going to say something else about Keep.
Well, I got a question for you.
Sure.
How did you like the new event site? Because I was incredibly hyped going into Keep. The site looked amazing, and unfortunately I wasn't able to make it this year, but from all the pictures that I saw, it looked spectacular, and I didn't hear a complaint from anybody about anything at the site, and that is incredibly rare.
Yeah, we got really, really lucky with this site. So it's a 4-H fairgrounds. So, the site itself is kind of built to be like a fair. So they have these pavilions that are set up in such a way that you can actually you could actually drive into them. They're that big. So you have plenty of space for fighting ANS. Like we set up all the tables, and all the ANS was outside. We had plenty of room to do everything we needed. There's an actual like merchant's row that has electricity. Like every like pavilion and building has its own like electrical socket and then potable water spigot. So like, there is so much available water on that site, and everything is there for us to use. Out in the camping, the camping, the way that the campground is set up is that you've got your pavilions over here, and then you walk across a bridge, and then you've got all of your camping to the left, and all of your battle gaming to the right is the way that was set up. And then you come in, like, I think it's gate 3, and then you do your gate and you drive around and you go to your camp and drop off your stuff. So we have that. It might be changing this next Keep, because we knew there's a couple of logistical issues as far as like, people finding the right gate, and they were going to the one gate that Google was sending them to. So, we're thinking that, maybe we can fix that by just having gate there, and then, closing off the other gate and just letting people in to drop their stuff off. That way, we don't get cars there stuck overnight. They can go and park it in the parking lot. You think it will go back to that site in the future? It was a good site that you think will return to? Oh yeah, absolutely. Cool. So we are planning on having that site for Keep 12 for next year. So that is absolutely part of our bid. We love that site. There's and not to mention just the amenities that we get in that site. We get 2 fully functioning kitchens, not just 1, 2. There's a cafe that you can serve out of, and you can cook food in there. And then there's also like a full service commercial kitchen, in the actual, they have a conference center, I think is what it's called. Or what they've called it, rather. It could be a convention center.
Yeah, I was gonna say, from the pictures, if you've ever been to, if you've ever been to a 4-H fair and you walk in and they have the giant room with all the kids, they have all their posters set up and they have all their different things, but then you can go in and sometimes they'll do car shows in there, and then other times they'll do gun shows in there. It's one of those giant convention centers that they can use for a bunch of different things.
Yep. And that's just like the first building. There are so many more buildings that are available to us. Like there's an actual, we had a command center, which was great because that's one centralized location that everybody can meet in. Not that hasn't happened in the past, but like to have a centralized location that has air conditioning and like everything that you would need for your actual crats is great. And I'm really excited about that. And like there's so much more, like the horse stadium. I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but there's actually like a covered fighting arena that we were planning to use for the tournaments, but unfortunately I'm saying for this year rather, unfortunately they hadn't like pressed the it's not sand or dirt. Like whatever, it's dirt, but like it's really dusty. So fighters didn't really want to fight in there, but next year we're planning on having that pressed. So it's easier to fight on. It's not going to be as dusty. That way
imagine a indoor fighting tournament, but not on like a gym floor. So you don't have the impact of on your joints, taking legs and all of those things. And it's, well, from what I saw, incredibly well lit. It looked awesome. I think using that for like MHOG and doing your tournaments out there would be really, really cool.
Well, and not just MHOG either. We have Rage Cage every year now, which is the non-men's tournament that I'm a really big fan of as a non-men myself. So I really like that one. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to participate in this year just because of my own responsibilities. I was the ANS Crat this year, so I ran
How did that go?
Yeah, I think it went really great. I got a lot of compliments about just how I executed everything. The way that it was set up is that, on Friday we would have our ANS tournament. It would run from like 10 o'clock until, 7 or whenever. Wasn't sure exactly how many entries we'd get. I knew it wasn't going to be a lot, just for the nature of COVID. But I figured I'd give it enough time and enough space to have as many as we needed. So it went really well. We had 19 entries, 3 of those being some fun bardics. We had some really gorgeous garb and belts. And
yeah, I saw Xander's belt. Well, the gift for Xander. I don't know who made it, but it was pretty.
Yes. That was actually Leathan from Taldagor. He actually took second place. He put in 3 total entries, and he did like these leather cards that were tooled to look like players in TD. So it was super cool. They were leather cards, and
yeah, that's neat.
Yeah, and then he did like a landscape, like painted landscape, like terrain, an actual like block of terrain, which was super cool. And then
so let me guess. There are only 2 things that are allowed to win ANS tournaments in Amtgard. Was it either A, Garb, or B, a Bardic?
So the guy that took number 1 did have a really kick-ass bardic. And not just so much in the sense that he is like standing there singing. Like, no, this is like a full-on show.
Oh, cool.
It was so much fun. He had 2 other castmates. And the way that we had set it up is that there were 2 people that had entered the bardic, and they would get the same score for the bardic, and it would count toward their overall total. So we didn't do like the 0 to 5 scale because I just think that that's silly. It's dated for sure. But we did, you could get so many points for like presentation, wow factor, like your overall construction, your showmanship, there's just a bunch of them. I'd have to pull it up to remember everything, but you could get a total of like 50 points. per judge. And then we would divide that by the number of judges that there were. And that would be your overall score. You'd get like an average. And so the guy that won put in the Bardic. He also put in a guitar build that he did. It was a pirate guitar build.
I saw that. That was pretty cool. I saw a picture of that one. That was
that was super cool. And I'm trying to remember what his third entry was because it was equally as cool. But let me pull that up here.
What was best in show?
Best in show went to Lathan, actually, because for his belt.
Awesome.
And then we had an honorable mention for Gma. She put in 2 gorgeous pieces of garb. She did like a gypsy set. And then she'd also put in her 50th wedding anniversary dress. And I was so blown away by the quality of that dress. She's
awesome. Not only is her stuff top notch, she's an amazing person.
Yes. Yeah, agreed. 100%. She is so wonderful. And she just does a lot for the Rising Winds. As far as like getting people garbed go. Oh yeah. She's all over it.
She makes amazing things. And a lot of times you see either the highest end of high end garbers that are more expensive than what your average player can get, or you see the very, very low end. I'm going to sell you something for $30. It's going to rip before you leave this weekend. Mm-hmm. She has found a very good middle ground of making good, solid linen garb that is going to last you years and years, but is reasonably priced. And I really like her work. She does a good job.
Absolutely. Yeah. She's, when I was living up in Ohio, she had made me a, kind of like Celtic looking, blouse and skirt combo that I still have. It's still in my 2 laundry load fulls of garb.
Yep. Same. I joke with my wife, my budget on my yearly garb budget is more expensive than my like mundane clothes garb budget. And she gets mad at me because I have a closet up on our guest room that's just all my stuff. And she's like, you don't need any more. Why do you keep I'm like, because I want more. I want more.
Absolutely. Yeah. I definitely feel that. I buy more garb than I do anything else. But yeah, so Huggy Bear von Thunderpickle is the gentleman that took first place in Keep on the Borderlands. And the other thing that he had put in was like a dragon hide scabbard, which is like a dual scabbard for 2, what's the word? 2 daggers. It was so cool. But yeah, he scored really well, and he maximized the competition rule set, which was the point of making it the way that I did. I wanted people to enter multiple entries because that was what was going to net you, a Keep cultural champion.
Good. That's how it should be.
Win. Absolutely, I agree. I want you to enter multiple items. Like I get putting in the one item and that being anything you put in. That's cool if you want to focus all your energy into that. But I think that if you're going to be the overall nationwide Keep cultural champion, you should put in more than one.
Yep. So let me float an idea by you, something that I've been wanting to do for a while. And I like the idea. Get your critique it. Sure. So every kingdom on average has 4 ANS tournaments a year, 2 of those quals and then 2 Dragon Masters. And most kingdoms will have another 5th one in there, whether it's a role play one or whatever it is. So my idea is make each of those tournaments. You got to take quals out because most kingdoms have very specific rules on quals, right? But you've got the 2 Dragon Masters and ideally you add a 3rd one in. And each of those tournaments is the same every year. So I know in March, I'm doing X. In June, I'm doing, Y. And then each tournament judges a different skill set for each one. And so, for instance, best of the best is always in March. That is a single item entry. That is that one thing. And then the second tournament is we're going to go wide with this one. To win, you have to enter at least 3 categories or 5 categories and then go really wide with it. And then the third one, make it a super themed one. And that one doesn't have as much to do with the quality of your item, but with how well it fits to the theme that is presented. And then I think it would be fun to take not only could you track, oh, well, this person is really good at best of the best, but they can't really do this other stuff. But then if you took a point system from each of those tournaments and then gave out a yearly award for like what you're talking about, the overall Dragon Master for the whole year based on a multi-tournament thing that resets every January or something like that. I think that would be super fun.
That could be really cool. And it would be really fun from an analytical standpoint, just to like see, how people, and not only progress, but just how they perform. Cause I do think that it is interesting to see how people perform in like a best of the best versus like having to crank out 3 items or having to already have 3 items. Cause like, I know for me, I don't generally make stuff to enter into ANS. If I'm making something or I'm working on a commission, maybe I'll enter it if there's something, between here and my deadline. But like most of the time, it is just what I have and what I'm working on. Because I would rather put my full effort into like a commission and then enter a commission than like just to make something. Like I get that sounds kind of weird, but like just because I have my business, it's better to put that creative energy in a way that I can feel productive about it.
Well, and I think most of the game is probably where you are, where a tournament rolls around and they enter the things they have made since the last tournament.
Yeah.
I think I am an outlier in that I am specifically making items for tournaments. And if I happen to be able to sell them afterwards, cool. I think the majority of the game is in your camp. And part of the reason why I think that tournament format would be so cool is because personally, I struggle as an artisan in best of the best scenarios. My craft, the things that I am really good at, my skill set lies more in wide. It is just easier for me to get above average in a bunch of different things that average out to be better. But if you put my work up against a bardic or up against a sick piece of garb, my woven belt should never beat a bardic. It shouldn't. You know what I mean? Like in all reality, it shouldn't. And so I think it could be super interesting to look back and go, okay, this person is really good at this specific type of tournament. It's the same thing we do with our fighting tournaments. It's like, ooh, that person is a sick pole fighter, but can they get good enough in sword and board to be able to actually push it over the top and be able to, like, I just think that would be cool to be able to keep up with.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that it's very cool from an analytical standpoint, for sure. Like, and you don't see a lot of that in Amtgard right now. Like, it is, I wouldn't exactly say that it's not an idea that somebody has thought about before, because I'm sure they have, but it's not something that's been done before. Because you're right, we do have our Dragon Master, and that's generally, you enter 3 or more entries, and then Qualls is kind of weird because you have Qualls. Different requirements based. Like some kingdoms have actually moved away from having Qualls at all, and now they do just a crown tournament. So I'm pretty sure Taldagor does a crown tournament now, where they do the fighting tournament, and then they also have an ANS tournament that's very similar to Dragon Master, and it depends region to region on how that's run. But I like the idea of not having to make entries for Qualls. I think it's just dated at this point. Like, I like how Winter's Edge does it because, you declare and then you put out your intent, and then you also put out like your document of what you want to do during the reign. And that is your qualifications. Aside from your standard like Kapora and your Reeves test, you got to have those, but that's standard across Amtgard. At least I think so, or I'm pretty sure. But I do want to see that. Absolutely. Like, I think that it's something you should run with. I know that it kind of feels similar to like, what am I trying to say?
The idea in my mind is for it to be a circuit. And so if you're someone who is really good at one specific thing, like for instance, Bridge Wars and the Rising Winds, I know when I show up at Bridge Wars, that event I know what I'm getting when I show up there. I know what I'm getting when I'm at Keep. March event and the Rising Winds is generally the RP event, and it's the winter event. And so it's not going to be a series of a fighting event. And I, as a participant in these events, can prep for those things. I know what to expect going into it. I think as a competitor in ANS, it would be super fun to know every year on this date, this coming tournament's what I need to prep for. Cause then I can prep further out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. Like if you are trying to do like a circuit, like you said, and then you have a best of the best, then you know that you have a year to make this incredible best of the best entry, then like you have that time to put into it. Cause like for me, like a lot of my sewing time is just commissions. It's, it's making stuff for my shop, like sashes or, like just garb pants or tunics or, whatever I'm trying to crank out that day. So I think having that like set aside time over a year is absolutely doable. Cause like I've been thinking about my masterhood project for my master garber. Cause I do embroidery. So, it's not something that people see a lot of the time. Like it does exist in Amtgard, but it's not something that I see a lot of in ANS tournaments. Like I don't think I've seen much of it at all.
I think I've seen embroidery once or twice in 8 years of entering on a kingdom level now.
Yeah. I feel like I always really see it on like garb as like an accent, but not really like you're not painting pictures with embroidery. And like the idea for my masterhood is that I'm going to build a dress for my master garber. And along the hem of this dress will be an actual like painting image. Cool. And it'll be all done in embroidery, and it is probably going to take me years to finish. But, I have that idea and have like a year to work on something on that scale is absolutely doable. Embroidery takes a very long time. Like I'm working on this piece of embroidery right now. And just on this like white piece alone, I probably spent like 2 or 3 hours.
Wow.
Filling this in. And then on pieces like this altogether, I will probably spend upwards of 10 hours, maybe more, 15. I know that on some of these I've spent, the Pokemon specifically, I spent like 30 hours working on some of them. And to me, this is just practice. But like if I actually went in and I did some of that for an entry, like not only is it impressive looking, it takes a lot of time and you have to have a certain level of skill or it's not going to turn out in the end. Cause like I started doing hand embroidery 2 years ago, but it was mostly just like lettering or outlines. KO's hood is actually a good example of where I started. That. Yeah. So, it was all just outlines and I was just, printing pieces of paper and like stitching over the piece of paper. And, like sometimes it would warp or, in the end, it's not going to look exactly like the shape. Sorry, my roommate just came home. But it's just kind of like seeing that progression versus then and now and knowing how to do that. And I'm all self-taught. So like you have to take what I'm saying with a grain of salt because like I watch YouTube videos and how to do some of the stuff and then, I go. So it's not really like I've had a master embroiderer be like, this is how you do this. I really do want to see more embroidery in Amtgard because I think that it is such an underutilized art, especially for garb or even just painting or like entering your pieces stretched on like a hoop. Cause like if you took a painting, right, and you entered it into Amtgard, that is so impressive, right? Because you have the skill to be able to do like an oil painting. Or a gouache painting. Like you have the ability to do that and you enter it and it looks super impressive, right? It's the same concept for embroidery. Like if I like what I'm talking about with my masterhood project, it's essentially just like a stretched canvas that I have painstakingly stabbed, millions of times to make this piece of art. So, and I really enjoy it. Like I've done a lot of the Pokemon because I'm a big Pokemon fan. I've done like a teeny tiny bit of Ghibli stuff, Star Wars. I have a commission out right now that I'm working on, for a friend's personal heraldry. Cool. And I'm talking like big pieces of embroidery, like bigger than a sheet of paper. and it takes time. I mean, that guy's commission is, I can't even count the number of hours that I put into that commission just in embroidery alone. And then like the construction's no sweat. Like I've been making garb now for 6 years, more like 7 years. So that's no sweat. The embroidery is the real challenge.
For sure. And all of the embroidery that I've seen entered, what little bits I have been in the hoops. And I like for instance, when I go to the SCA, they have a bunch of the hand embroidery on like the edge of their keyholes. They'll do a lot of like the Celt or the Viking dragons, or they'll do a lot of the symbols that go up and around the collar. I would love to see more of that in Amtgard. I think that stuff is so cool.
I really would like to see more of that too. I like hand embroidery is the equivalent to applique in Amtgard. And like, as much as I love applique and I literally am wearing an applique tunic right now, embroidery is just up there too with hand embroidery as far as like how like cool it looks. Like I think I honestly prefer the look of hand embroidery over applique. It holds up better over time too. Because your applique can rip out or it can do any sorts of things. And like that can happen with hand embroidery too, if you don't take care of it. But like the way that I finish my hand embroidery is that like you won't see all of the knots, like all of the backside of, like you won't see all of this stuff. On the backside of your tunic or the inside of your tunic, maybe on stuff I made 2 years ago. But now when I finish this, I will like actually sew a panel into the back of this.
I gotcha.
Or I will, where I'll use like, not cardboard, but like, it's like
cardstock,
like thicker cardstock, like poster board, like thick poster board, foam board. There we go. That's what I'm really talking about. Keep falling down in my chair because it's broken. But yeah, like I really enjoy embroidery, and I think that I want to bring that to more people. I actually just taught an embroidery track, which really turned into like one long class. I had a couple of people join me and they really seemed to enjoy it. We just sat around and we talked about like, how does embroidery work? Like, you're really going to stab this like 1,000,000 times. Yeah, actually you are going to stab and stitch this 1,000,000 times. And there's just so many different stitches and ways that you can have the same effect or different effects. Like the way that I do a lot of my fill art right now. Let me explain. So when I'm talking about fill, so this is all lines that I've done in black. It's an outline. So the way that I do a lot of these is I will actually buy printable adhesive sheets. So I can run that through my printer, put the design on it, and then I can actually just attach that to my fabric, and then I can stitch right over it. So
cool.
I'll have like a layer of stabilizer, a layer of fabric, and then my adhesive sheet. And I'll stretch it over the hoop, and then I will stitch directly over the lines in that print. So I do an outline first, and then I'll do like some detail work. So you can see, sorry, backwards here. So you can see like the eye, I would do that first. And then I'd fill like the nose. And then I'd come down here and I would do a lot of the fill. So when I do fills, I don't know if you can see this, but there's like directional stitching in the actual fill itself. So I will go around and around and around, to do the actual stitching, and it gives a really cool texture. Like, especially for Pokemon that are like, furry, or like fuzzy, it causes a really cool texture. I know on my, Squirtle specifically, the back or his shell is, actually stitched in such a way that it looks like it's swirling in the direction of the shell itself, the pieces.
That's cool.
So they go like this and they go all the way around. So it's just little details like that.
You don't get that in applique.
No, I mean, there's cool stuff that you can do with applique. Like, I don't want to knock applique. It's like you can paint on fabric, and within applique, you can, there's just a lot of cool stuff you can do. But I think that embroidery just gets the really small details that sometimes can get missed in applique. And I think it's just underutilized and sometimes underappreciated. I know that like, I don't want to make this about awards, but like, I have 3 dragons.
It's Amtgard. That's what we do.
Yeah, like it's just not something that's seen a lot, and that's not my park's fault. That's not my kingdom's fault. It's something that isn't seen a lot. But yeah, so like if you enter embroidery on its own, or you make embroidery on its own, you don't even have to enter it. Like you can get thrown a dragon at you. Like if you're not putting that on garb, then
or even if you are, do both.
Even if you are, and you're like, and you specify, or they just say, I'm going to give you dragon for doing this embroidery, then that's perfect. Like, I agree with you on that. And it looks so cool on garb. Like, Chaos hood looks so cool. And I mean, as much as I want to remake that hood, like, just because of how cringy I think it is now, I still really enjoy it. And it's very personal, cause it's got a lot of, like Stormlight Archives references on it. All of the writing on the sides of his hood, is a reference to, Stormlight Archives. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. I really enjoy that. It's got like the Phoenix and crowns and, fire and like his elephant. So
I love his elephant.
Me too. It's such a cool heraldry. You never see like, you don't see animals a lot. You see a lot of like mine's a helmet. Mine's a Valkyrie helm. So like I have that, and you see a lot of like helmets and swords and all sorts of stuff like that, but not a lot of animals. I don't think
animals are hard, because I think it's very difficult to find animals that aren't clip arty. And most people, when they don't want the traditional lion, right? Because it looks silly. Like, we don't like those. It doesn't look cool. Yeah. Right. It looks old. But then the other option is clip art, and that looks bad too. And so I feel like getting an animal or a person can be difficult sometimes.
No, I agree on that. Like I commissioned my heraldry from Sir Promethea from I think Iron Mountains, I want to say. And they did an incredible job. Like I love it. My heraldry before that was literally just some clip art. Like it's actually on the back of this tunic right now. It's a sword and a pair of wings. And I think it's actually a Warhammer reference, if I'm correct. And I had no idea what it was at the time. I really like Valkyries.
Yeah.
And I like sword and wings. So here we are.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've had the helm for, I want to say like 6 or 7 years now. I think I got that when I was still living in Missouri. I haven't lived in my hometown for a long time now.
So I know mine is behind me here, the Crown of Thorns. I can't even, everything's backwards with the key row right there. So mine's black on black, but in the award, it's a little different. And I think I changed mine probably 3 times before I landed on something that I really wanted. And I'm like, all right, now I have I have a flag on it. I've got it on garb. It's like, all right, I can't change it now. I found one I liked. This one's stuck.
I feel that, that was how I was with my helm. Like it is what it is. If I'm going to change anything, I'm going to change the color in the background, I want to have that on everything. Like, if you're going to make me a personal award, slap that bad boy on there.
Yep. That's how, so I have a Placidip shield with it on it now. And I had a Sir Smiley made me a sword cover with it embroidered on it. And
that's dope.
It's pretty cool. I came out a lot better than I thought it would, because it's ripstop. And I was like, I don't know how the embroidery machine's going to do on ripstop, but it came out really cool.
Yeah. And with machine embroidery, you can do a lot of cool stuff too. Like I talk a lot about hand embroidery, but like machine embroidery is very cool too. But you have to know where to find your digitized art, or you have to make it yourself.
Pay someone to do it. Absolutely.
Pay somebody to do it. But and something I kind of wanted to touch on is that it's so easy to change stuff in Amtgard. Like there's this big stigma around changing things. Like, please change your heraldry if you don't like it. Please change your name if you don't like it. Like specifically for me, Cannonball had this it had this childish feel to it when I was coming up in Amtgard. When I came back, it just felt childish, and it felt like I never really got to name myself. And so for me, it was about reclaiming my name. And that's why, I dropped Ball and I went by Cannon for a while. And then when I got belted to Rosalind, I took the last name Tul as an homage to her and our Beltline. And then, Lyndon being my knight now, well, I guess they're both technically my knight now, but, Lyndon is the person who's taking care of me most, by choice, of course, on everybody's part. But that line means a lot to me. Like, and it's not just like the name, like when you are in the Beltline that I'm in, it is a certain amount of like pride that you have in the people that are in the Beltline. 'Cause like, we have stuff like traditions. Like it's not a really well-known fact, but like Lyndon is a defender, Rosalind is a defender, and I'm a defender. So like, in the future, I'd like to see my 2 pages become defenders, because it's something that they're perfectly capable of. Champion is an elected position now. And I think that, do a good enough job and, you could get that. It just depends on your kingdom, but it is a cool tradition that we like to pass down to our people.
And you guys do like a Christmas thing, don't you? I've seen you or somebody was posting about I've seen the Tool Christmas posts that come up every year.
So as a line, we do like a Secret Santa thing that we have every year. And then we also do, we have a week out of every year that we do. It's called Tool Week. And, everybody comes together and we try to teach as many classes as we can. We try to reach out to as many people as we can and like just spread our knowledge. 'Cause like you have lines that have all of this knowledge and this just experience. And it's a shame to like let that go to waste. So we as a line have decided that like we want to spread the knowledge that we have, and we're going to do everything that we can to do that. And not only,
I like that.
Yeah, not only just like the people that are with us now, but we also try to spread, knowledge that we've gained from the people that have passed. Like specifically, Tie-Dye, who was, a knight out of Taldagore. She was part of my Beltline, or is part of my Beltline. And, just like things that she has built, we've tried to carry on since then. And sure, we may not have done as well as she could have, but, it's just important to us to remember them. So it's just kind of a special thing about our Beltline. And it's the reason why I love it. Like I've been in this Beltline since 2017 and I have no plans to go anywhere else. Like they will see me knighted 4 or 5 times over. So I'm very happy where I am.
So I am in your camp in that my overall association with Beltlines has been pretty positive. I really enjoy them. I get a lot out of them. I got a lot out of being a man-at-arms and a squire, and now I'm really enjoying when I was a squire having man-at-arms and like I enjoy both upwards and downwards participating in Beltlines. But I get people all the time that say that the worst thing in Amtgard outside of our award system is knights and their Beltlines. So if someone says that to you, what's your response to that?
I mean, it just sounds like to me that person had a really shitty experience. And I can relate, because my first belt that I took was from somebody in the Rising Winds that I had fun with, but they didn't really have like a student teacher relationship. And I think that is, what you really should look for when you're looking for like a squire or a knight, right? Like you want to have somebody that you can learn from or that you can progress with. Because it's not just about like, it's not a one-sided thing. It is two-sided. Like you are learning from that person and that person is learning from you and also has you to depend on and vice versa. So to me, when somebody says that they've had a really shitty experience with the whole like knight squire man-at-arms relationship, and like I'm not going to tell them to try it again, because they've made up their mind and that's their business. But like, it's not bad. It is actually a good thing, and it is worth it to me to have that. Because like my first belt relationship didn't work out. My second belt relationship didn't work out. And it was of no fault of those people. It was just, I found something that worked for me. Like I was a man-at-arms to Raven the Swift for a while. And when I moved to Taldagore, Raven was in Texas. And so like I was building this relationship with Rosalind, and at a point, we had built that relationship to be more than just like, this is my teacher, right? This is a person I depend on. This is a person that I go to for advice. And not that I wasn't doing that with Raven. It just felt like I was closer to this other person. So like when I had made the switch, like we had all had just a conversation and we're like, we think that this is a better fit. And in the end, everybody was cool. I'm still great friends with Raven, and it's just a matter of like, I don't want to say like having those adult conversations because that sounds silly, but it's just a matter of
so
like,
true.
Yeah, it's just a matter of like sitting down, talking about it and being like, hey, this is what's up. I don't have any ill will. I just think that this would fit better into what I'm trying to do. Because like at the time, I was excited about fighting, and then I moved back to Tal Dagor, and like there's fighting there, sure, but like I was more into like service and leadership. So it just kind of made sense at the time to be belted to Rosalind, and not to mention I really enjoyed being around the people in Rosalind's or in our Beltline. Like I had briefly met. I forget who exactly. It's been so long at this point, but I just had met more people and I vibed with them, as opposed to like, kind of vibing with some other people.
Yeah.
So,
well, there's this stigma out there that you can never leave a Beltline, or if you leave a Beltline, it's going to be like friendship ending, like catastrophe. And you said you were in at least 3 that I've heard. I was in 3 as well. And I'm still pretty good, friends with the Beltlines that I was beforehand, and if you're in a Beltline, listener, or you're worried about joining a Beltline and it doesn't work, right? Whether that's you're not getting what you want out of it, or the personalities don't mesh, or someone else you think can help you along and achieve your goals better, go for it. Don't feel like you're stuck for all eternity. Don't like I have and I'm a nerd like this. I'm a checklist person. I'm a spreadsheet person. So before I bring anyone into my Beltline, I send them like an expectations chart. Here is what you can expect from me, and here is what I want to expect from you. And one of my bullet points is, you are welcome to leave anytime you want for any reason whatsoever. And if you want me to, if you think that there is someone else who will better help you achieve your goals in Amtgard, tell me and I will help you join their Beltline. Like, if I'm offering you a belt, it's because you were my friend beforehand, and you will be my friend afterwards. Don't let this belt around our waists freak you out or like ruin your Amtgard.
Yeah, no, like you said that and I was like, let me roll my eyes harder. Like I think I physically rolled my eyes. Like change is okay. It is okay to change something that you don't like about the game. And it's not even something that you don't like. It's just you like something else more. Like I agree. I would never like want my pages to feel like they were stuck. Like I want them to have the freedom to do whatever they want in the game. Like I'm not here to tell you what you can or can do. Nope, that's not my job. I am here to support you in what you want to do, and then kind of lift you up and help advocate for you when you get to that point. Like my Knight is great about that. She advocates for me all the time. Like she's very close with the circle here in Winter's Edge, the COK rather. And so, she has those conversations, or she will talk to the monarch and have that conversation. And it's just part of the job. And I do the same for my pages. I just had a conversation with the Monarch of Rising Winds about their service at this past keep, because they did a lot of service in Bell before they came to keep. And so it's a pretty big jump to go from like, 1 or 2 roses to like doing service at the level of keep. Right. So, it's just having those conversations and being that support person for whoever you're wanting to take into your line. And you should consider that as both like as a squire and also as a knight, because these are people that depend on you. You have to be in a place that you can, make that relationship and then maintain it. Because it's not just like, hey, I'm going to belt you because you're my buddy, right? Like I want to be your friend first, of course. I would never belt somebody just out of the blue. Yeah. Unless they were like freaking incredible. And I vibed with them like immediately. I want to be your friend first. I want to meet you a couple times. I want to try and see if this will work. And that's why I don't have any more pages, and I don't have any man at arms, or people at arms rather, because I have two, and I have to make room for them. And I don't want to detract from their experience by bringing in another person. Like I'm perfectly capable of expending that energy for my 2 pages, and I happily do it. I love them. They are wonderful. Kind of for reference for listeners, my pages are Rowan from Rising Winds, and then also Viscountess Catriona from Rivermore. And like, they're far away from me, right? I live in South Carolina. They live in Indiana and Kansas, respectively. It's Missouri or Kansas. They're getting Kansas City.
Something out there.
Right. And like, it's giving them that support over the internet a lot of the time, and like meeting up with them at events and like having that like, oh my God, I miss you, kind of, experience. And that's why I like having them. Plus they like fit really well into our Beltline as a whole. We all talk, like we're all very communicative. Like I said, we have that Secret Santa that we do most years. It's been a couple of years now since we've done that, but with the pandemic and everything else, we just kind of put everything on hold. But I like to see that come back.
So I'm going to touch on that real quick. What advice would you have for anyone in a Beltline, whether, you're a Squire and you have a page, or you're a page to someone, a Squire who is very far away from you geographically? They're not in your kingdom, or even if they are in your kingdom, they're, you see them twice or 3 times a year. What are some tips for success for people in long distance belting relationships? So
it's hard, right? Because not everything works for everybody, right? Like one of my pages, we talk every once in a while, and that's great. I love hearing from them. But another of my pages, I talk to you almost every day. Like we have that relationship and that back and forth every day. And that is part of what our actual relationship is. Because I felt like we were friends before, but like since taking them on as a page, they've really become one of my best friends. So communication above all else. As far as like keeping that relationship alive is just communicating, checking in, you're making plans, even just like Zoom calls, or, like I'm going to call you on the phone and talk to you while I drive, and that's how I make it work with my pages. And that's what Lyndon and I do. We'll talk to each other, or we'll video chat and we'll craft together. And with Rosalind, I call her, or she calls me and we chat. Like Rosalind is also my best friend. Like she is a person that I count on. And I think that is, above anything else, if I can give you some advice, it is absolutely to just communicate, just talk to each other. Like seeing each other at events is the cherry. I think that talking on through Messenger or text or calling is it's so valuable, because you continue to build that relationship past, just having a page that is your friend,
So I would 100% agree with the communication aspect and I think that's in any Beltline, whether it's in person or through the airways. Because like what we were saying, there are going to be times where you're going to disagree and there's going to be arguments, and whether that's I want to leave or not, or whether that's, hey, I don't like how this works, or I want to do this, or hey, I really want you to come and serve with me at this event. Well, I don't want to. I want to come and attend. Whatever it happens to be. I think having those, like you said, adult conversations and understanding we're all here to have fun, and we're all trying to enjoy our time together. I know as a new player, I was so infatuated with a page belt when I was, I got it when I was like 6 months into the game, and I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And I had a fairly rough first experience with it, with my page belt. And then I was like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And then I became a man-at-arms to somebody else, and it was a little bit better. And then I became a Squire to somebody else, and it was like, okay, this is what, it can take you a few times to find the specific Beltline that you click with. And that's okay. Don't feel like you have to, I took this page belt, I'm going to be with this person for 10 years now. Nah, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Don't worry about it.
Get out of there if that ain't working for you. Like this is, the game is absolutely what you make it.
Yep.
It really is. And like having the ability to just like have that conversation and be like, hey, I'm not really having fun with this anymore is hard. It can be difficult, like, because, you know, that person's your friend, right? Like my first belt, that person was a good friend of mine. And then, you know, some other stuff happened, but like, you know, after I left their line, it was just like not as good of a relationship anymore, you know? And that happens. It's not, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say it's all going to be hunky dory, because it just depends on the person. But like, you have to be able to have that conversation and be mature about it. I think that's the word I really want to say is the mature conversation about like what's going on. And that's something we make a really big point of in our Beltline. It's just like having the mature conversation and being like, this is the way that this is happening. And like, sometimes you don't agree. Like I absolutely have just been like, okay, well, I don't care what you say. And that's not the mature answer. The mature answer is just to be like, you know, I hear you and I'll work on it. Right. And it's not always going to be like that. That's a prime example. Like I've quite literally said that. But on the flip side, like I've had conversations where they've been like, hey, I see that this is a problem at events for you when you're doing service. Like maybe you should kind of look into this. And like I did. And then I learned that I had ADHD and now I'm better at doing service for it. So like,
that's cool.
It's just like, that's not the only reason I found out I had ADHD, but like, you know, I'm better at doing service because I was able to like, you know, get medicated and be able to like executively function in a way that, you know, I can do better service.
For sure. The goal of the Beltlines should be one that is of encouragement and helping each other achieve whatever goals that are set. And you can do that. I learn as much from my underbelts as I think I teach them. You know what I mean? I don't know, just in seeing, like, for instance, now I just took a page and he's a brand new player. I mean, it has been like it's rocked my world to be able to experience the game fresh and new again through his eyes, like vicariously living through him as he, understands how Barbarian can do this. Like I miss those early days of Amtgard, and I didn't think that I would enjoy like relearning the game with newer players again. Like that's been something really cool.
That it is such a cool experience. Like it's happening sort of with my husband, because he's a DAG player before, we got married. And he's kind of like made his way in Amtgard, and I've made my way into DAG. And like, just to kind of see his like reactions to like, oh, level 6 Barbarian can do this. Oh, that's how court works. Like, here's the award structure. That's super cool. Cause like, DAC doesn't really have an award structure. They don't at all. And like, it's just cool to see like the differences and like their kind of like excitement. It makes you kind of excited again. Not that I'm not excited because I love Amtgard, but like it helps.
It helps. It's a shot in the arm.
Yes. Like in one of my pages, Rowan did a lot of Bell, and then kind of was like made their way into Amtgard, and like they're just starting their journey, and it is so cool to see like the beginnings of that journey and to see them walk that path. Like, they're getting like their first awards, and it's so cool to like be like, oh, you got your second dragon. That's so cool. Or you got your second rose. Like, I'm so proud of you. It is so cool to have that. And on the flip side, like, Catriona is well established in Rivermore. She's up there, in her crowns and a couple of others too. And it is so cool to see that progression as well. Like I'm pretty sure she's above me in like crowns, or a couple of things. And like, if it gets to that point where she's about to be knighted, like somebody is going to take her and knight her. Cause I could at that point, but I've dropped the sword on somebody before, but it would make more sense to get her with somebody that can support her at that level. Cause like, maybe I'm not there, or maybe I am, and I just haven't caught up. So it's a matter of like being honest with yourself. Like if you're honest with yourself about where you are in the game, and if you can support somebody else, then that is going to get you further than anything else. Like communicate. There it is. That's what it is. It's communication and honesty. You have to be honest with yourself, and you have to know if you can handle what challenges they're going to have. Cause I've certainly had things come up where I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm flying by the seat of my pants, and everything worked out in the end. You know, but it's maturity, honesty, and communication. That's all it is.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I agree completely, because everything's more fun when people have the same understandings, and there's no gray area, right? It's like, hey, this is what I expect from you. This is what you expect from me. Let's go have fun. And if we get to a point where those expectations aren't what we want anymore, cool. Let's still go have fun. Yeah. And like, I really liked the fact that you had brought up, like, you know, hey, this is my sheet of expectations, what you can expect from me. And like, I love that. I think that's great, but I think that it can also go the other way. I think that sometimes Beltlines can expect too much. I agree with that. And especially when you have like, sometimes when you have a strong lineage, that weight of expectation can hang heavy on you. I know that, you know, there have been a couple of times where I've been like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. My cat just tried to jump up on the counter. We are incredibly pet friendly on this show, so don't worry about it. He's a sweet boy. He knows he's not supposed to be on the counter though, so. But what I was saying is that I know that sometimes you can feel crushed under the weight of that expectation. I know that I've had trouble in the past, and I've had some feelings about like being stuck. You know, I'm not progressing. Like, am I still quote worthy of this? Right. Am I worth their time? And in the end, it's always yes, because that's a friendship. That's something that you depend on. And if the answer is no, then like, it's not for you anymore, you know, like, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be like this big thing. And it's the same with fighting companies. And I say that because my first fighting company experience was not a good one. I just did not fit in, and I didn't like the way that I was treated. And ultimately it just wasn't for me. You know, I spent a couple of years trying to fit their mold, and I'm not their mold. You know, I'm not their type of person that they wanted in their company. And so like I left, and I joined another company that I really loved, you know, and in the end that one didn't work out either. And that's perfectly okay. You know, it is not a reflection of who you are as a person if something doesn't work out. Yep. It is quite literally about relationships and, you know, having that connection with somebody else, or with a company, or with a household, or, you know, just any multitude of things. It's kind of like, it's the same with a relationship with like a partner. You know, if in the end it's not working out and you're not having fun, you don't stay in that relationship, or typically, you know, you shouldn't stay in that relationship. You should move on, and you could find something better if you want, or you just fly solo. Like since getting out of my last company, I have been like a free agent. I don't have a company. Like my actual colors are black and green. Like, and I have been since before Scions, but how do you exist in Amtgard and not be in a company? I didn't know that was possible.
Right? Like, it's totally acceptable to be companyless. As much as like our culture is like sometimes company focused. And I can say that especially in Rising Winds, because for sure. the company culture is very strong in RW, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that there's just a balance that needs to be made. But that's another conversation entirely. Yeah.
Well, I think it takes, in all of these settings, it takes a bigger person. Like you earn my respect if you come and leave whatever it is, a Beltline, a company, a whatever, and just leave as friends early, rather than letting it sit there and fester for 5 years, and then it blows up into this big giant thing that you don't even want to talk to me anymore afterwards. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I agree. I think that it is a maturity thing, and I will respect you more as a person if you're like, hey, you know, it's just not working out. And I'll be like, all right, bet. Did you find what you wanted? Can I help you find what you want? Like, you know, whatever you need, because you were ultimately still my friend in the end. You know, if I choose to spend time around people that I enjoy being around, and not even just in person, just like on the internet in general. Like if I'm talking with you in Messenger, it is because I genuinely enjoy talking to you. Like if I'm not saying that like people messaging me about stuff for Amtgard is a pain. It's not. I love doing that too. But like the people that I go to are people that I want to be around. I just don't waste my time or energy on people that, you know, don't want to have that relationship, because it's not worth it in the end. You know, like you only have so many minutes, hours, years on this planet, and I'm just gonna let it ride. Like,
well, as a new player, you might feel like this pull that the only people you can hang out with are your Beltline or your fighting company or your park mates or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I would encourage you that is not the case. There are some of my best friends in this game will never be in my fighting company and will never be in my Beltline. And I hang out with them at every event for hours. And that is how it should be.
Yeah. No, I absolutely feel like that. Like when I was in Scions, I freaking love those guys. Like they are some of my best friends. Like I've known Kenshin the longest in this game, you know, since day one. And, you know, like I hang out with them at events still. Like it doesn't matter. Like I'm still chilling in their camp. Like even if I'm not part of their fighting company, like I'm still chilling with those people. They're still my good friends. Like that's the thing about fighting companies too, is that it is the same kind of thing. You know, like it's a bigger group of people. Sure. You know, it can get really big.
Not for the tool line, but I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
You are correct. We are large. But you know, if we count immediate family, but yeah, like it's the same concept. And ultimately that's just kind of what happened with Scions. You know, it's just having that, you know, hey, this isn't working. And we're like, okay, all right, let's go, you know? And that's how I feel about it now. May not have felt like that, you know, a couple years ago, but you know, I've grown up since then. You know, I've gotten medicated since then. I'm like taking care of my shit, you know, and I think that that's kind of something that you also see in Amtgard. Like you grow up in the game. Like, if you had met me, actually you probably did meet me like 5 years ago. And I am this obnoxious loudmouth, like big ball of energy. Right. And like, since then, you know, I'm in my late 20s now. I'm like, not as loud. I am obnoxious when I want to be, like when I'm mean to do, and there's like a reason for doing it. I'm not being loud and obnoxious, just to be loud and obnoxious anymore. Like if I'm using that skill for something.
Yeah. Intentional obnoxiousness.
Correct. Like that's the whole reason why I have a hype master title in the first place, is that I've taken that ability to like be loud and obnoxious and like applied it to the correct things. And that's kind of like your glow up, or your grow up, if I should say, in Amtgard. And like something that worked for you 5 years ago may work for you now. It's just a matter of like maybe making that connection, or just like taking that chance. And I think that's important in Amtgard too. Like you may have met somebody 5 years ago and you freaking hated them. Maybe you don't hate them now.
I have found that to be so true.
Yep.
People that I just couldn't stand. And then now 5 years later, we have to work together for something else here or there. And I still don't want them over for dinner with my family necessarily. But
Sure.
I don't despise being in their presence. Like, I don't know, that mindset, maybe I was just a much more cynical person 5 years ago, which is probably true.
Yeah.
Or both people have just grown and it's not a big deal anymore type of thing, you know?
Right. I absolutely agree. Like everybody's growing at their own pace. And it may, like, that is so important for like just having to work with different people. Cause like maybe you have to work with somebody that you didn't necessarily vibe with before, but maybe you do now. Or maybe you just have the skills to like be cordial and like be, you know, whatever you need to be, regardless of what happened in the past. And that's not always the skill that I had. You know, there are multiple relationships that just got blown up. Right. And then I was like, fuck that. Like, I'm not messing with that anymore. You know, but maybe now it's different. And it's kind of gone the other way too. Like you just learn more about people and you'll be like, maybe I don't want to associate with them anymore.
Figure out which ones are worth it and which ones aren't.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, I can't agree with that more. So,
well, You said something a little bit ago, and I want to come back to it, and I want to pick your brain on it because I am at my very core when it comes to LARPing. I am a cross gamer through and through. I love every aspect of it. I highly encourage people to cross game. So you said you are playing DAG a little bit, and your husband is a DAG player coming to Amtgard. So most of the people that I have encountered are Amtgarders going to other games just because Amtgard's my main game. So first up, I want to get your overall opinion and takes on DAG. What's similar? What's different? What do you like? What don't you like? But then also give me a little bit of perspective for your husband coming from another game to Amtgard, because I don't get that perspective a whole lot. What are the things that he's jiving with that he's enjoying?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, so DAG for me is a little, the history is a little colored, or it's a little checkered, because I had tried DAG in Ohio in, like 2016, and like I had a really bad experience, like not to say it was all bad, like it was fun, but I had a guy like run and jump at me and fucking bowl me over, in the middle of an objective game. And I got a concussion, and I was like, I'm not doing this again. Like if that's how they're going to play, then that's not for me, and so I hadn't really thought about it, after that. Like in my hometown, there's a DAG park, but the guy that ran the DAG park was a jerk, and I didn't want anything to do with him, or the park, so our realm, I guess is what it's called in DAG. And so, when I moved out here to South Carolina, there's the Albion boys are awesome. Like I could not ask for a better group of realm mates. And that's kind of like something that brought me back into the fold, was like, meeting all these people and being like, okay, these people are cool, and like they like to fight and they like to chill and hang out. And so when I first started dating Dustin, he's like, hey, you should come out with me to this. Cause we'd actually met at like a practice. And, cool. It's really funny because Dustin is like 6'6". He is a big dude. And I am 4'11". So like we're fighting each other, and he's underestimating me because he's 6'6", and that's what happens. And he didn't expect me to jump. And so we squared up, and I like jump and I tag his shoulder over his board, and he was shook. He did not expect that. And like, I love telling that story because it just proves like that chemistry that was like there, between the two of us. And he was just like, oh my God, like, how did that happen? And since then, he's kind of learned, but as far as like DAG goes, he's the reason why, I started coming out to DAG, and like, just to have Albion there has been so cool. Cause like, he's in the Sons of Terra, and they are an Albion,
unit.
That's the word. Yeah. They're not a company, a unit. They are the Albion unit.
For our listeners who don't cross game, a lot of the terminology functions very similarly, but realm is the same thing as park. Unit is the same thing as fighting company. Beltlines pretty much share the same terminology. So you will hear the cross gamers use those back and forth. Just that's what it means. They're pretty much function in all purpose. They're the same thing as what they are in Amtgard.
Yeah, in DAG, you see a lot of like Knight Squire relationships. You don't see a lot of like Squire Page, blah, blah, blah relationships. And DAG is a lot more simplified of a game. Like they have a lot of like, like garb requirements and like your weight requirements with your swords. But like they don't have an ord structure. They don't have like a kingdom. They don't have, this, and this. It is quite literally, we are coming out here to hit each other with sticks and play battle games. And that is so cool. Like DAG doesn't have a magic system. You don't have to learn battle gaming rules. I mean, like there's some.
They have a heal spell.
They have a heal spell, and that's something you can make up yourself. Which is cool, but like,
it's got to be, I think it's 160 syllables or something. So you bring your 160 syllable heal spell to the referee essentially at the beginning of the game, and they will approve it or disapprove it. And then you can use it, and it can be anything you want.
Yeah. And DAG has like heralds instead of reeves. And it's the same thing functionally. But you know, DAG is just a lot more simplified. It's a lot more like, we're going to come out, we're going to come and fight each other until we're tired, then we're going to, maybe play a couple of games and then we're going to go home, or we're going to hang out, or, I will say this for DAG, like I got to go to RAG 2019, and I had never experienced an event like that. That blew my freaking mind. Like, Keep on the Borderlands is incredible, but like Keep on the Borderlands ain't got nothing
really
on Ragnarok. Okay. Like, just the sheer amount of people at that event, and the sheer amount of like parties and like nightlife, and like
it's roughly 3 to 4 times bigger than Keep, from what I have heard. Yeah. I haven't been, but
I mean, it's pretty normal to see like, I think over 2,000 people at that event. And I'd never been to something that size, and it's so cool. Like, and that also has to do with like the site size. Like the site is huge. Sick. It is freaking massive.
Pennsic and the SCA is
right.
And
exactly.
Pennsic's like an 8,000 person event. So right. The site's massive.
And not only that, like they have amenities. Like it's just like, they have a shop. In the whole site, like they run it themselves, and
like a grocery store.
Yeah. Like a grocery store, and they do food. Like you can buy food at the grocery store. Or like they have like a cafe that you can go and like pay to charge your phone if you need to, or like, it's like the little stuff, and like the amount of like merchants that were at RAG, like so cool. And even if it did rain, like a lot of the days out of RAG, like I still had a freaking blast. Like RAG is incredible. And that was kind of a difference in DAG for me, is that like that event in particular, there's just a lot of work put into that event. And like, I totally get that from like a person who like works on large events. Like to see that happen, and like, it didn't blow my brain, because I kind of like had an idea of how that would work. But like I sat in on their meeting for RAG, for planning the next RAG. And like, that was so cool to see, like just to watch them talk about what they were going to do for the next year. Super cool. And I don't know if I was supposed to be there. So, it's super cool. And like, I really hope that RAG comes back, because that's definitely one that I would go to again. But, even smaller than that, like we have monthly musters where we come out and, we will fight each other and we'll play some games, and, maybe we'll make some food. Like I know the first muster back, we like made a ton of food, and I made cookies, and I brought cold watermelon, because it's so hot here in South Carolina.
Yeah, I bet.
Summers are brutal. And we have to make sure that we're all staying cool enough. But yeah, like monthly meetings. And then, we're starting at Friday night fights, cool. Again, which is just a practice. It's the same concept. But to me, it's a lot more simplified. Like I'm not as big of a fan of the combat, just because I have tendonitis in my hands, and, like playing Amtgard is fine, but like swinging around a Dagbat is just not for me.
For sure.
But it's similar. It's just a lot more simplified. And as far as like Dustin's experience, like Dustin had a really terrible experience with Amtgard like 8 years ago. And it's kind of like he had a certain perception about like what Amtgard was. And he just was like, maybe it's not for me. I'll keep playing DAG. And so like kind of slowly like getting him to come out and play, and like he's getting more into it. Like, he came into Amtgard with like a 6th or 7th level warrior skill.
Okay.
Maybe even 8. And like he very jokingly said, I'm just going to enter a 5 and under, and I'm going to crush it. Right. Because he could, he 100% could. And the Monarch at the time had caught wind of this and was like, all right, 6. Here's your 6th order of the warrior. And we're like, all right, bet. And he's like, grinning ear to ear about that. And I thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
And he's completely joking, of course, like this is not serious at all. But the Monarch was like, I know that you could do that though. So here we're going to stop that right now. And I don't think that like he had really thought that they were paying attention, right? Because, you know, some monarchs pay attention and some monarchs don't. He doesn't know that, right? But like just to kind of have that, kind of see that through his eyes is such a cool experience. And not only that, like just him getting his first and second roses for literally delivering something from an event that he was already at, to somebody that he was going to see, you know, soon. Like it's just so cool. And for him to like read through the rule book and be like, Barbarian. This is something that happened this week. He's like, wait, I can use adrenaline and I can get a limb back. And, and it was kind of one of those, like, you know, it's over for you bitches now kind of moods. Like,
love it.
You know, and it's just little things that he is kind of, discovering as we go on. Cause like he's been to ANS Symposium and he's gotten to see a bunch of like that side of things. But like it's almost from an outsider's perspective when you go to a large event like that and you haven't played a bunch of Amtgard before. So you're like, for him, it was like, what do I do with my hands? You know, like, what do I do with myself? And so it was, you know, I was led of, hey, you should go, you know, do this fighting class, or, you know, hey, you can help me with this if you want, or you can go play that battle game. Like, and it's great because he's getting to that point where he doesn't need me to like bring up what he could do. You know, it's like, hey, I'm going to go teach this fighting class, or, hey, I'm going to fight in this battle game today. Are you coming with me?
He's comfortable.
Yeah. He's getting that comfortability and like, just, going out to our park and like making those connections too. Cause like, it's so cool to see him like take his experience in fighting in DAG. Cause it's been nearly a decade now, and like teach somebody else. Yeah. Cause like he's recently like kind of started teaching in our park and like trying to up the skill level in our park. Cause we have a lot of new people, and, he's kind of like giving that to these players, and they're just like eating it up. Okay. And he's eating it up too, because he really enjoys like actually showing people how to fight and how to like, get better. Cause you know, he went through it. He knows what it takes. Yep. And like, there's just this one player in particular that's been like, yeah, let's do this. This is super cool. And like the weekend after he taught that class, the guy that like took to it most, like came to a muster and like has started playing DAG, and it's super cool. Like cool. Yeah, I haven't had that experience in a really long time. Not since I was playing in Knoblands, I want to say. And I kind of reinvigorated some of my love for the game, because like I want to touch on this a little bit. So I went through a really big burnout after Keep in 2018, like to the point where I was like, do I even want to play Amtgard anymore? Like, am I having fun? Because I wasn't, you know, like Keep 2018 was very hard for me. I put in, I was Fisocrat. So I put in like, I think all said and done, I put in like close to 60 hours. I didn't leave site until 5 p.m. on Sunday. And then I had to drive the 5 hours home. So like I worked really hard, and I felt like I was A, not appreciated, and B, just exhausted, and not just exhausted in the physical sense, emotionally, mentally, like every way of exhausted you could be. I just was. And, you know, that's part of the reason, like somebody had brought this up to me, but they're like, you know, maybe you didn't get your 8th because you didn't do award recommendations for your people. And I said, you know, that's fine. That's fair. It's part of my job. But at the same time, like I had put in so much effort at that event that like, I literally couldn't do anything. I had to walk away from it. I had to be done. So it, you know, it was like, okay, that's fine. But as far as like burnout goes, it's helpful to have that experience from somebody else's eyes. Cause like, I won't lie, in 2019, I was like, I'm not doing anything for Keep. I'm not doing it. I did Symposium that year and I really enjoyed that, but I had already committed to doing Symposium the year before. So it was like, I'm I am still burnt out, but I am following through on a commitment that I made a year prior. Because it's just how that event works. You commit a year prior, and I committed again for 2020 because I knew that like I was going to want to do that event. I like, as far as events go, it's like Keep on the Borderlands Symposium for me. Like I love that event and I will do everything I can for that event, just like Keep. So I spent a lot of time like just talking to people and like trying to get perspective on what was happening. Because, you know, when you do service at that level and you don't receive your next order, or you don't see any kind of like I don't want to say gratitude, but you don't see any appreciation, it's really hard to like want to do more. It's really hard to like even want to do stuff locally or just like even to care at all. And so I spent a lot of time like talking to my overbelt and like talking about my feelings and dissecting how I was feeling. And I also spent a lot of time trying to figure out why I was the way that I was, because, you know, another complaint, from that year was that I was all over the place, which is true. I really was. Like, I felt like I had to do everything myself and I didn't delegate as much that I should have. And it bit me in the ass. Absolutely. Like that's why I worked so hard, because I didn't delegate enough. And a couple of other things, but you know, we're not going to talk about the unsavory bits. So when I was having those conversations and I was trying to figure out like why I was the way that I was, it really took a lot of like self evaluation, and it took a lot of self, like internal work. Cause like, I didn't have any idea that I like might have ADHD at that point. Like, I had no idea that I could be neurodivergent. I always just thought that like, I was impulsive. That's just who I was. I'm impulsive. I do too much. And I have executive function. I didn't know what executive dysfunction was at the time, but like I was dealing with a lot of like depression. I've had a lot of depression since I was a kid, like 12 years old. And that's, I'm not going to get into that, but that's just kind of something I've dealt with for a really long time. And at points you get kind of like numb to that, like, especially when you've been dealing with it for so long. Like it's there, it's just kind of like humming in the background. And I never realized that like part of that could be the fact that like I had undiagnosed ADHD from the time that I was like a child to an adult. And like part of learning and being diagnosed as an adult is like coming to grips with that and coming to understanding that like part of your quote failures, I put huge air quotes in that because it's not a failure. It's just an opportunity to do better next time. And I had to learn how to look at things like that. So sorry. My cat is eating right there. If you hear it on the mic, that's just my cat. But like, I just had to learn how to put all of that in perspective and how to do better next time. Like since getting medicated, I've actually like, my depression hasn't been so bad. You know, like I'm able to actually function like a normal human. You know, to kind of put this in perspective for the listeners here, like a lot of the times with people that have ADHD, their brain's never quiet. Like, you know how like you can have a thought and you can grab that thought, right? And you can focus on that thought for a minute, right? People with ADHD, their brain is moving like 1,000,000 miles a minute. So you'll have a thought and you'd be like, okay, I'm trying to grab that thought, but you can't focus on that thought. And your brain is just so loud sometimes that you can't really think about what you're doing. And it's hard to focus on the task that you're doing. And I have that problem sometimes. Like in a specific in Service in Amtgard is that like I would cook breakfast for my gluten-free people, right? And this is an actual thing that happened. I cooked breakfast for my gluten-free people and I set the dishes aside and I said, okay, I'll come back and I'll do these ahead in half an hour. I have to go run and do something else. Well, I come back 3 hours later, right? Because I got distracted by doing a million other things.
Yeah.
And somebody had already done the dishes and they're upset because I left the dishes, right? And rightfully so, because they thought that I had abandoned the dishes. But in my brain, I hadn't abandoned the dishes. I was coming back to it when I actually could. And that's not their fault. That's totally a my brain thing. And I just had to learn how to put that in perspective. So it's actually helped me in Amtgard service quite a bit. Like this year going into Keep, I was a little nervous about like actually being able to do the service and do it well. And like, this was the chillest, most relaxing event crap that I've ever been. Like I finished my stuff up when I needed to. I had time to like pull shifts on event services. Like I was just able to be there for the people that needed the help the most. And that was really rewarding for me because I haven't been able to be that person in the past. Like I just haven't. Even with like symposiums, I feel like I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off. Like, you know, it just felt like too much. And getting medicated really changed that for me. And I say that a lot, but you know, it's the truth.
I get that 100%. I was diagnosed as a little kid with ADHD, and that was in early 90s, mid 90s, and I was on medication for it as a child for 1 year, and then my mom took me off of it and refused to put me on anything, and so I went from school every year. I was at a different school because I was asked not to come back if I wasn't going to be on medicine, and then I always just thought that's a me issue, right? It's like, why am I a bad kid? I don't think I'm a bad kid. I wasn't a bad kid. I was just a hyper kid, and then having to get to middle school and then high school and then through college and now in a professional setting, trying to figure out your idea of the thought. If for me, I always explain it as if you've ever seen the commercial of like the old fisherman who's got the dollar bill on the end of he's like, oh, almost got it. But then imagine that, but with like 50 reels. And so you're like, I almost got this one. I almost get, and it's bouncing around everywhere. And for me, one of the reasons why I have never ventured into, I've done a little bit of crown, but I've never ventured into any of the flame path for two main reasons. One is my professional career is heavily linked to those two skill sets, and Amtgard's a vacation for me. So I don't particularly want to do that. But then the second one there is I know that my brain is kind of like what you're talking about here. I will get the things done, but I don't know if it's the best way for the majority of the people because I know how my brain works and that's not how most people function. And so it's neat to hear your story about that because that is one of those things that I've not wanted to push into, big event, anything.
Right.
Just because of that very same reason you're talking about. So that's cool to hear your story on that.
Yeah. And it's certainly like, it's certainly something that could be like overcome. Sure. Like, I literally went 27 years without, any kind of medication and you learn to cope, but like, you're not getting the same quality of life as a neurotypical person. And it's something that's being talked about a lot more now. But 10 years ago, you had no idea. Like 10 years ago, we weren't diagnosing, like AFAB people or assigned female at birth people, because they don't present the same as assigned male at birth people. And that's because it's different for I'm going to say female just for the sake of simplicity here. It's different for female people. They are more non-attentive. They're more like overachievers. They're more like perfectionists. And it's very much the way that I present. I'm absolutely a perfectionist. I hyper focus on things. And a lot of the time that's how I get things done. I absolutely procrastinate. I am the worst procrastinator and it's really hard for me to break out of that. And like, I was really inattentive in school. Like I did terrible in school. And it was not for a lack of being smart, because I'm incredibly intelligent and I know that I am. It was just, I wasn't interested, you know, I wasn't interested in what was happening. Like I excelled in things like theater and choir and like stuff that I was interested in. Like I went to culinary school, and I did really well in culinary school. It was just a matter of like, I had to do math and I had to do English, and like those things are uninteresting to me. Like my ADHD now looking at it is the reason why I didn't actually get my culinary degree. Like I had all the classes completed for the actual like practical part of my degree, but like the
gen eds
classes just kind of same my ass. And like that's just part of it, you know, and that's actually why I had really enjoyed doing a lot of feast stuff. For people that don't know that, I went to culinary school. I was classically trained in, you know, a lot of culinary stuff. And and not just that, but like I have like the budgeting and all of the like service industry stuff that goes with that. So it kind of, for me, as far as my path goes, it was an easy match, you know, like, and as far as like parts of the event, Feastocrat is not the hardest job, right? It's not, but it's not easy either. It is like below autocrat, and I would say it's even below like trashcrat, because there's just the sheer volume.
It's the one that gets the most hate though. Like if your trash guy doesn't do great, like the rest of the crat team will complain, but the average player, it doesn't affect their stuff. I think if the games suck, everybody notices. And if the food sucks, everybody notices. Like
if the food sucks, if it's late, if it's not if it's not as good as it could be, like people will bitch. And like, that is something that I felt really harshly after Keep 2018, because we had a misstep. A really big one that could have been catastrophic. And I completely agree. Like, you know, I won't say anything on the contrary, because to say that would just be stupid. But like, I did not deserve the level of shit that I had gotten for that. Like, I had a team and I trusted a person, and then, you know, things didn't work out, and that's okay. It's not their fault. It's not my fault. It's just shit happened. I guess I shouldn't say fault, because, you know, of course, as the Feastocrat, I'm responsible. But I learned a lot from that. And I'd never received that level of like hate before then. Because, you know, I'm generally liked in Amtgard. And I'd always had that experience, you know. There's a few people that just don't care for me, and that's fine. I'm not their cup of tea. But I had a general positive experience with just about every other person that I had interacted with. And to hear the level of like
vitriol
and shit talking and posting, and just like the virality of the whole thing, like it made me feel like shit, one. And it just made my burnout worse. You know, like it was just like, why do I do this? And it's actually the reason why I won't do feasts anymore. Like as a rule, I will never be Feastocrat again for any event. I don't care how much you beg me. I will not do Feastocrat again. I would literally rather be Trashcrat than do feast. And that's just a personal choice. Even if I have that skill set, I'm not going to do it.
Not interested.
Nope.
Would you do a meal? Would you be one of the, I don't know what you were saying, you had a team. Would you be a team member in charge of something? I'm curious.
I might do like a premiere dinner at Keep.
That'd be cool.
Just because that would be a cool opportunity, and it is much smaller scale, and it is a lot less risk. Because like, here's the thing. When you're cooking food for 900 people, it is hard. It is really, really fucking hard. Like so much could go wrong. Literally so much. Just the amount of logistics that you have to cook everything and get it to the right temperature and get it to the people on time is very difficult. For listeners out there, and to give perspective on the whole thing, I had become Feastocrat for Keep like 7 months before the event. So I had to put, I originally had a co-crat. And that person just wasn't able to do it anymore. And so I ended up having to put together an entire team and, figure out if there were any meals that I needed to run in that time. And I don't know, 7 months is not a lot of time for an event the size of Keep.
Correct.
People literally plan for Keep for 2 years. And I'm not joking when I say that. We're pushing it by doing it in a year, but we also have like a pretty all-star team and they know the ins and outs of Keep. So, and that's why it's important. But I ended up running 3 of the meals myself. And like, to be fair, one of those meals was like an oatmeal serve yourself bar. It was something that I was up at 2:00 in the morning working on it. I took a nap, I came back and I set everything up. Right. Which is fine. But then you compound that on like doing a lunch. I also had one of the lunches and the lunch went off without a hitch. It was perfectly fine. We did grilled cheese and tomato soup. It was great. It's lunch or traveler's dinner or something like that. Something easy. Yeah. And then I did main feast, and main feast is the hardest meal to do at Keep.
And that's the hardest meal in the entire game.
Yes, that's true. It is the hardest meal in the entire game. And it is because of the sheer amount that you have to prepare, cook, like execute, and everything that you have to do in between. Because it's not, from an actual classically trained person's perspective, it's not just about cooking the food and getting to people. It is cooking the food in a safe way and then holding it at the proper temperature to get it to those people so they don't get sick. So to have something like undercooked chicken happen is a big deal. It's hugely a big deal. And I am absolutely responsible for that, just as much as, the other people on my team that, maybe didn't take the proper steps. Because looking at it now, it's just a matter of like execution. It wasn't a matter of like logistics, because logistically we had everything there. We had everything properly that we needed to do. We had like plenty of oven space. We had all of the speed racks to hold all the food at temperature, because you have to, for main feast, you have to start you start in the morning. Like you come in Saturday morning and you start your prep for that night. And you work in the back until you are done. And you have a team, of course. But like, it's just a matter of putting it in perspective. I think it's just what a lot of people don't understand. And I think that's probably the reason why I got so much hate for that. And that's okay. Like, it's not their, it is their fault for being jerks. But it's not. My reaction to that at the time was just it fueling my burnout even more, or making it worse. So
well, I think there are 2 important things to note here. One, everyday Amtgarder, even if something is wrong with anything in Amtgard, there is a correct way and an incorrect way to express your feelings on those things.
Yeah.
There is a difference between constructive criticism that is asked for and all of the crap that gets slung all around, right? Yep. I have on this show before, I am not a huge fan of Amtgard feasts, and I make jokes, and I love how DAG does it where they cater stuff. Yeah. I say all of that jokingly, but you will never hear me say that person did a terrible job, and you go into it and then you list out all the stuff. And especially if the things are not actionable, saying this feast sucks doesn't help anybody.
No, it really doesn't.
This feast was 30 minutes late. Why? That doesn't help anybody. So the first point, point 1, if you're going to give criticism on things that you know nothing about, do so in a way that is constructive, that will help people to do better in the second time. Second point here, if you do something and looking back on it and you think that you are getting a bunch of criticism, by the time you get 8, 9, 10, you will have done something that will have criticism. Everybody does. How you deal with that criticism is incredibly important. And Cannon here has, we're years in the future now, but it is incredibly important to be able to own up to the things and not just own up to them, but understand why the things went the way they went, and be able to, if she wanted to do it again, would be able to, do it in such a way that it wouldn't happen again. Because saying, well, it was wrong because of, and then you go on the blame game, and then you don't have a plan for how to make it better next time, isn't productive either.
No. And that's also like, just to kind of touch on like service path. That is like one of the most important things that you can learn in that path, in that journey, is just like the ability to like analyze what happened, how it happened, why it happened, and what you can do better in the future. Like unfortunately I'm still at 7. It's been 4 years now, and 4 different crop positions later, and I'm still at 7. And that's not exactly like anybody's fault in particular. Like I moved in the middle of that, and it's just like getting reestablished. Yeah. But it's just it took me learning about myself, and also just taking responsibility for what happened to actually get better at doing what I needed to do. And that applies across every journey, belt, relationship, you could apply that to literally anything. And it made me a better Amtgarder in the end. Not that really matters, but it just helped me. And it also helped me kind of come back to the game. And kind of come back with more fervor than I had before. Cause, at the end of 2019, I was like, I don't know, like, I'll do symposium, and then the pandemic happened. So, and I think that's also like a collective thing, like collectively pandemic happened, and we all learned a little bit about ourselves by living through a pandemic. So I think that's probably part of it. And we can definitely attribute some of that to that, but it certainly made me appreciate Amtgard more, and it's made me appreciate some more of the effort that people have put in, because I have absolutely been that person before. I've been like, oh, God, this feast sucks, right? But like, I'm not. Maybe I would have been like on a good, bad, and ugly, been like, this feast is kind of bad. But like, instead of saying that, I should have been like, maybe they could have done this, because like I do have that expertise. I do have that knowledge. And it's absolutely like just growing up. It's like the biggest thing, like growing up and being like, hey, find that feedback form and submit it via feedback. Yep. That was one of the most important things. So.
Well, I know for me in the A&S tournaments, the first couple of tournaments that I entered, I had some major disagreements with how things were ran and how things, and it wasn't like I was still doing well. I was still placing, it wasn't one of those type of things. But for me, I did not voice my disagreement very well. And it came across very poorly, and it was worded very poorly on my part. And the old phrase that you catch more, bees with honey.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. And so for me, I railed against judges for a long time, and then I judged.
Yeah.
And I still rail against bad judges. You know what I mean? But I still rail against bad tournament formats. There are good ways to run tournaments, and you can call out people who don't have good tournament formats or who aren't good judges, but you can do so in a way that is constructive and helpful for that person, that doesn't drive them out of the game, because there are ways in which you can, the feast sucks. That doesn't help anybody. This tournament sucked. The judge only left me 2 sentences worth of stuff, and it was awful, right?
Yep.
That doesn't help them get better.
Nope.
So
it really doesn't.
Yeah. I want to roll. We are almost to the 2-hour mark.
Yeah, we are.
So I want to end on a fun note. Okay. So generally I will ask people to do this last question on their main path, but because you are so spread out, I will let you pick whichever path you want to tackle this question with. Sure. So question is, if you were to build a Mount Rushmore today of the 4 most influential, could be the 4 best, 4 most influential, however you want to interpret the question, of people in Amtgard for the Mount Rushmore of your particular area that you want to cover this question on. So who are the 4 people you're putting on the Mount Rushmore of service or of crown or of pick the masterhood that you want to do this on, and pick the 4 and tell me why you're putting those people on your Mount Rushmore.
Oh, that's hard. Okay. I think I almost got it with dragon. I say like dragon Garber because it's serpent in general. I'm going to put Lyndon, of course, for their elimination, for their scroll work. And they're just like a well-rounded artisan in general. They're able to do an incredible amount of different things, but they specifically do incredible scroll work. I'm going to put Revel, Ellie Apland, up on that Mount Rushmore for their garb work. Their ability to paint pictures with applique and paint is just chef's kiss. Who else would I put up there? I would also put Alona up on their on my Mount Rushmore too. Like as many disagreements as we have on a personal level, they're incredibly skilled. The fact that Neverwinter is just now giving them, I think, a Master Dragon is insane.
Yeah, that is criminal.
Yeah, it is. That's it. That's absolutely criminal because they are constantly pushing the envelope and constantly developing new ways to like celebrate Amtgard. Be it leatherworking, scroll making, they build award templates for Amtgard to use for free. You know, just like their ability to create is freaking incredible. Gosh, and I'm trying to think of my fourth person. It's terrible because I have the hardest time remembering names too. So like these are people close to me. And it's people that I remember. There are so many different people that I could put on there. I know who my fourth is. Glenn from Taldagor. Maria Judd is freaking incredible. In general, just like the creativity that they show in their scroll work, in their garbing, in their applique, just in their everyday person is just incredible. They're an incredible judge, a tournament runner. Like they have it all. And all of these people really do. But I guess that's why they're on the Mount Rushmore, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that would at least be my serpent Mount Rushmore that I could think of. I mean, I could probably do service too.
Go for it.
Gosh, as far as service goes, why am I blanking right now? This is awful.
Here, I'll give you my service. I'll buy you some time. So, because I've only done this in my head with sword. I actually haven't followed the rest of this out yet. So
yeah.
I would put Watt up there because Watt is, if I recall, a master in all three, and he's the only one that I know of that has all three of the masterhoods there. So I think he has to be up there. I would put the gentleman, and I don't know his name, but the gentleman who created the wiki and the atlas. I think those tools, the historically, those have to be up there. Whoever that is, I couldn't tell you who did that. Let's see who else. I would probably put Cads up there for his Smith and his battle games and his just overall influence with a lot of the things he has done there. And then let's see, who do I want for the last one? I got to go old school with it. So, we've got a Smith. We've got multiple Smiths in there. The last one's hard. I'm not sure on who I would put in my last one. But those, I'll give you a 3. Those are the 3 off the top of my head.
That's fair. I was actually trying to look up who created the Amped Wiki. Let's see here.
Ooh, or I know my fourth one. The gentleman who he's from Ken Walker. What is his... he created the JSORC, and he makes all of these different tools for the online use of the, like, for this, I like my game creators and I like the people who make resources available. That's my common theme here.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I think their name is Lucas the Lost is the name of the creator of the wiki. Okay. Or at least he's like the head of the team, because I'm looking at
I gotcha.
This, and Lyndon was actually part of the team that created the wiki. I'd have to agree that the people that Watt, absolutely. Watt is like is a paragon of service. Like if you need something done, he knows how to do it or who to reach out to. Cause it's not just about like being an effective service person. It is having those connections and having that network too. So like, I definitely think that Watt belongs on that list. Kenshin from not Rising Winds, from Tel Dagor absolutely belongs on that list too. And he's not a Master Rose, which is a shame. That man should have been Master Rose like 6 years ago or more. It is just a matter of getting caught up, because if somebody needs help, they will help them. Like Jake Kenshin is a big part of the reason why I had the chance to be Feastocrat in the first point. He did my first keep lunch with me. We did that as co-lunch runners. So he's definitely one of those. I also think that Lyndon belongs on this list. Lyndon does an incredible amount of service. Even now, she teaches classes, which is, huge. Huge. It's part of getting our history and getting our collective knowledge out there. So
I'm going to go on a rant real quick, 30 seconds, and you can have the floor back. One of the biggest differences between the Amtgard and the SEA, and one of the reasons why so many people go towards the SEA who could love the combat of Amtgard more, is the classes, and the off the field aspect of the SEA is huge. We need more people teaching classes. We need more events like the one you were talking about. What's it called?
Symposium.
Their classes are what will bridge the gap between us and some of these larger games that we currently don't have a whole lot of.
Yeah, no, I could not agree more. I am a big proponent of classes, and I always have been, really. I remember Amtgard back in the day was very much like, it's kind of like a guys club, and it's kind of like you hit people with sticks, or you're just not really part of the park. Right. And Nobland specifically made a big push to like have those classes, because I've always, as a player, had that available to me. I've had the classes. Like, I remember one of the first classes I ever took was with, Sir Oswald, who's a knight in the SCA, who's actually since passed from us. There we go. He ran a class about shoemaking, about how to make turn shoes. And that knowledge has stuck with me since then. Haven't been able to use it, but I know how to at least make a pattern. So like, I think that having that actually made our park stronger, like, because we had the ability to like entertain these fighters, right? And we had the ability to like have these battle games, but we also had the ability to like have these classes and have this RP and have like all of this like goofy nonsense that everybody enjoyed. And that is what makes a strong park. And that is what makes a strong culture, because like Amtgard has a cool culture, but like it could be so much more. And we're getting there. We're seeing more classes. We're seeing more tracks. But I think that's important. And that's why Lyndon also ends up on this list. Not to mention like just her literal decades of time in the game. And then I also, you know what? I know who I'm going to give my fourth spot to. I'm going to give my fourth spot to Kite from Polaris now. Kite has quite literally made and given away over 200 tunics. They quite literally have garbed more than 200 people. Yeah,
they have garbed the Burning Lands 4 times over.
Yes. Like they have spent tens of thousands of dollars in supporting their kingdom and done so happily. And it takes a really big person to be able to do that and not feel entitled. Because Kite didn't get their Master Rose until like, I think 2017. After being in the game for, God, I can't even remember how long they'd been at the game at that point. And then, to sit on a Master Rose for 5 years or for 4 years now, and to not get knighted is a shame. I think that they certainly have earned their knighthood many, many times over. And that's not to say that they don't have some personal growth to do, because they know that. And they're doing it. But I think that based on what they did, they absolutely should be a Flame Knight at this point. But that's just my opinion. But yeah,
hey, that's what this is for.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, I love it. So names I haven't heard of, some names I have. That's what I love about this. Eventually I'm going to take each of these segments and cut them out from all of my guests and make a big long, here are what everyone says about the roses, and then throw it up and do. I think that'll be pretty fun. So
that's so cool.
Yeah. So going in here, we're going to close up. You've talked about your shop a couple of times here. I want to plug that for you. Where can our listeners, if they're interested in seeing your work, if they're interested in commissioning you for some garb, where can they go and look at all of your stuff?
Yeah. So, they can find me on Facebook for, we're called at Cannon Point. That is my actual garb shop. And then I am Brittany Meeker on Facebook. You can actually type in Cannon, and it'll also come up. You can actually see my embroidery work on Instagram directly, at Cannon Point, which is hilariously enough also a Star Wars reference, because you have AT-AT Cannon Point. So it's just goofy stuff. And then, at Cannon Point is actually, it's a double entendre, because cannon, of course, it's artillery. And then, you also have point for embroidery. So my husband came up with that, that's off to him. So you can find me at Cannon Point on Instagram, where you can see my embroidery stuff. I post commission work there as well. Not very often, but when I get permission,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then, my husband does, drinks. So he's Howitzer Drink Works. So he's pretty big in DAG, but he's making his way into Amtgard. And he has that available if you're interested. But yeah, that's where you can find me now.
That's awesome. I will put some links into the description below. So if you're interested in finding out more about at Cannon Point and all of the works that are going on there, make sure you check those out. I think unless you have anything else on your mind that we just didn't cover that you want to make sure you've got the platform for a couple more minutes here, anything else you want to get out?
I think that something, just to kind of wrap it up here, I think that in general, I just want people to be more kind to each other. It can be really easy to throw vitriol, and it can be really easy to be angry at somebody, but it's way more difficult, but way more worth it to just be nice to people. As goofy and just maybe too much positive attitude. I think that people just need to be more kind, and they need to be more open, is just kind of what I want to see in Amtgard now. And I think we're going to get there. But that's just what I want to see.
I agree 100%. So with that perfect ending, I am St. Godric. That is Cannon Tul. Everybody, if you've made it to the end of the podcast, we really appreciate you. Make sure you check out links in the description. Hit that like, hit the subscribe button. It means the world. We'll see you next time.
Bye.